Hey everyone, remember how I was excited in a previous episode for all the performance improvements coming to our CPUs on Linux? Well, this week we will lose some of the benefits of all that work because there are two new vulnerabilities that will once again require mitigation patches that will once again lower the performance of our CPUs. We also have SUSE and Oracle teaming up to take on Red Hat's anti-community practices and guaranteeing access to the source code to the community for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and we have some cool new features and updates about Plasma 6, but also GNOME 45. 45 like the number of characters in this sponsor segue. This video is sponsored by Chasm Workspaces, the container streaming platform that lets you stream any OS, desktop or app to your web browser. And they've been working on implementing one of the most community requested features, translations. Now it's a developer preview for now, and Chasm would like you to give it a shot and provide feedback on how well things work. They will automatically use the language and the time zone of your web browser in any OS, desktop, terminal or app you're streaming. Or you can set the language and time zone manually from your profile if you prefer, or if you use a VPN, for example. You can download that developer preview for free right now using the link in the description below, and don't hesitate to let Chasm know what you think about it. They're really focused on implementing community requests right now, so give them a hand. So, bad news for our magnificent computers, as there are two new severe flaws in Intel and AMD CPUs that require mitigation patches that will once again lower the performance of the chips. For Intel, it affects from the Skylake generation up to the 11th gen, and it is called downfall. It allows one user to access and steal data from other users on the same computer, like passwords, encryption keys, and any personal data or files. The issue is that these modern Intel CPUs unintentionally expose hardware registers to the software. Mitigation patches are already underway and can have a performance impact of up to 50%, although Intel claims most workloads will only see minimal performance loss. For AMD, the flaw is called Inception, and it is similar to the Spectre flaws we already had to deal with a few years back. It's only exploitable locally, apparently, so it should be less severe than the Intel problem. And it affects the 3rd and 4th Zen generation, so basically most currently used Ryzen and EPYC CPUs. Here again, mitigation patches have been submitted, although I could not find numbers for how much performance will be lost here. And that's unfortunate, as these mitigation patches are sort of mandatory if you want to keep your computer secure, and they tend to really reduce the performance of our already kidney-priced devices. Now there's something brewing in the enterprise Linux world. Oracle, SUSE and CIQ, the company behind Rocky Linux, banded together to form the Open Enterprise Linux Association, or OpenELA, with the goal to support Red Hat Enterprise Linux downstream distributions. Notice who is absent from the foundation? Red Hat! That's because this new foundation has a simple purpose: making sure that source code is freely available for all downstream Red Hat Enterprise Linux-based distributions, focusing on versions 8 and 9, with plans to also support version 7. They clearly state that this is the result of the recent moves from Red Hat to limit access to their source code to paying customers, and of their customer licensing agreements that prevent customers from using all their GPL rights if they want to remain Red Hat customers. They also say they welcome other organizations and community members to join the foundation and to contribute, which potentially would include Alma Linux, but since they decided to move to being ABI compatible and not fully one-to-one compatible with Red Hat, I would say they probably won't join in the near future. The OpenELA will only provide source code, not a full distro, and they will also add guidelines for downstream distros to test their builds, a branding kit, some documentation, and some security-related data. And it's an interesting move because it means that if Red Hat doubles down on anti-community behavior or locks down more source code or access to their software, then we have one organization uniquely placed to actually define the new Enterprise Linux distro standard. Now, of course, I also need to praise Red Hat when they do good stuff, like their plans to improve bootloaders on Linux. The company is now hiring for their display team, which basically works on everything desktop related, from packaging to desktop environments and now bootloaders. The work will be focused on Grub 2 and UEFI support, of course working with upstream to fix bugs, to add features to the bootloader that most Linux distros use. On top of that, the position will also include maintaining and enhancing how Grub 2 is implemented in all Red Hat distros, so Red Hat Enterprise Linux, CentOS Stream, and Fedora. The work will also apparently include collaboration with computer and hardware manufacturers, something that might have a positive impact on how well Linux is supported on various devices. So if you know C, Grub, and the UEFI boot process, you can apply to this position now. I left a link to it in the description of the video. Now we have some more details about the state of Wayland support on Plasma 6 and also some cool new features. So while Wayland on Plasma 6 is not completely perfect yet, it looks like a solid improvement over what we got in KDE 5.27. Notably the fact that all apps will now survive a restart of the Wayland compositor, namely kwin in this case. Previously, if the compositor crashed, it would take down all open apps with it, which really sucked. In Plasma 6, this won't be an issue anymore. They're also fixing the draggable toolbars and docks that KDE apps often use. On Wayland, when you drag them out of the window, they just pop out, and they aren't placed in a smooth fashion. As soon as you drag them out of the main window, they just appear as a small window, and you don't get to place them where you want immediately. Developers created the XDG top-level drag protocol to handle this, which should restore smooth operations on KDE for dragging tabs out of browsers and toolbars and docks out of Windows. On top of that, KDE developers are working on implementing remote desktop using RDP over Wayland. The current supported way for remote desktops on KDE is VNC, which is honestly a worse technology as it sends uncompressed images over the network, which results in high latency and poor performance. RDP, on the other hand, can use H.264 to compress this. However, RDP is a Microsoft technology, which fortunately has an open implementation called FreeRDP, which is what KDE will use. They will also use hardware encoding with VA API, and it will use the remote desktop portal, although this will need some more work to support more features. There's already an alpha version available as a Flatpak bundle if you want to test things out. On top of that, KDE developers made most tray icons monochrome on the desktop now, so things should look tidier in there. Bluetooth-based internet connections got a new icon to differentiate them in the network applet. The open button in most apps got a small arrow pointing down to let you quickly open a recent document, and there are a lot more smaller changes being worked on. And if you want to learn more about remote desktops and the various protocols, I made a video about this, I left a link to it in the description below. And I'm also very happy to see that Plasma 6 still has some big features being worked on. It's not just a porting job with a few adjustments, there are some big improvements in there. As for GNOME, it looks like GNOME 45 will have some nice features. First, with native screencasting support. It was a Google Summer of Code project which aimed to let users cast their screens to other devices, straight from the quick settings menu. There's a new small button next to the screenshot icon, and clicking it brings a list of Miracast or Chromecast compatible devices to which you can just cast your screen in one click. It supports mirroring the display, but it also supports extending it and positioning it wherever you want, just like a physically connected external display. Now you could already do that in GNOME using a third-party app called Network Display, but having it baked into the desktop itself might mean some apps would integrate it directly, especially video players, audio players, and the like. Now on top of that, we have some GNOME app updates for GNOME 45, like Loop, the new image viewer. It's now confirmed as being the default image viewer in GNOME 45. We have Maps now having a vector layer, still in the experimental phase though, or GNOME Contacts for GNOME 45, which will use newer GTK components that will significantly decrease the memory consumption of the app. GJS, the GNOME JavaScript engine that powers GNOME Shell, also got some performance improvements for GNOME 45, and GTK 4.12 is also released with an improved Vulkan renderer and a lot of fixes for accessibility-related features. And this should make GNOME 45 a pretty interesting release. I was afraid that they wouldn't have anything significant to showcase this time around, but it looks like I was wrong. Now, fans of rolling releases can rejoice as there's a new one. Rhino Linux is now out of beta, and it is the continuation of the rolling Rhino project, which was a set of scripts to turn Ubuntu into a rolling release. So this distro comes with a lot of cool stuff like Packstall, which is an AUR-like package manager for Ubuntu. It is used to ship all the customization in Rhino Linux and the default apps, and the Rhino Linux repo is handled as a community repo, where anyone can submit a package. On top of that, there's RPK, which is a package manager that lets you install through apt, Packstall, Flatpak, and Snap with one single UI. Rhino Linux uses their own desktop called Unicorn. It's based on XFCE, but it does look a lot better than the vanilla version of that desktop. And it implements ULauncher, an app grid, and a dashboard that looks like an older GNOME activities view, and they also have a nice looking theme. They also have a setup wizard to let you configure and customize your system after install, and something called Rhino Drop, which lets you send files to other computers on the network, much like AirDrop on macOS. And it does look like a nice distribution. I can't attest to its stability or functionality, I would have to give it a shot, so if you want me to review this, leave some comments down there and I'll see if there's enough interest for that. Okay, let's finish this with the gaming news. First, it looks like Valve will now offer refurbished Steam Decks at significantly lower prices. The entry-level 64 gigs model is $319, $80 less than a brand new model, and the 512 gigs unit with its anti-reflective display is $519, more than $100 less than the brand new model. All these refurbished units should basically function as brand new devices as they've been tested thoroughly, but they might have a few cosmetic issues like minor scratches. They also come with the full warranty that a brand new device would have. So if you wanted a Steam Deck but it felt a bit too expensive, I think that's a great way of getting your hands on one if you're okay with a few blemishes on the outer shell of the device. And Overwatch 2 landed on Steam as Blizzard promised some of their games would, and it is immediately working on Linux and the Steam Deck. Proton Experimental actually included a fix before the release, so it's all nice and supported. You do need a Battle.net account, of course, and since there is no pre-built shader cache, you will get some stutters when loading into a new map. But the game seems to work on medium on the deck, according to Gaming on Linux. And that's pretty nice to see, but Overwatch 2 I personally don't care at all about. Just like any competitive multiplayer shooter, I do not play those things, they're super boring to me. But what I want to see is Diablo 2 Remastered, Diablo 3, and maybe Diablo 4 coming on Steam. Maybe that will get me to buy it and play it, as all my friends have already completed it in all the difficulty settings, and I'm gonna play alone. Great! Great, like today's sponsors, computers. Tuxedo makes laptops and desktops that ship with Linux out of the box. And the reason you might want that over any other manufacturer that ships with Windows is that, well, you know that the hardware will work with Linux. Tuxedo actually submits patches upstream to enable hardware support on all of their devices if stuff isn't already working perfectly out of the box. They offer a variety of pre-installed distros, but you can just slap your own and it will work. They have a wide range of devices that should fit every price point and every need, from ultrabooks to giant desktop towers, workstations, NUCs, gaming laptops, you name it. All of their devices are very customizable and all their laptops are openable, repairable, and upgradable. So if you need a new PC and you plan to run Linux on it, and you want to support Linux's development, click the link in the description below and buy yourself a Tuxedo PC. They're really, really good. So, thanks everyone for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't hesitate to like, to subscribe, to turn on notifications, to write a comment. And if you didn't like the video, well, this sort of stuff happens. You can just click the downward facing thumbs down button and let me know in the comments why you didn't like it. And if you really enjoy the channel and you want to support it, there are plenty of links in the description of the video. You can just check them out. LibraPay, PayPal, Patreon, YouTube thanks, whatever. You know how this works. So, thanks for watching and I guess you will see me in the next one. Bye!